For what's trending in true crime, nearly 30 years after the death of legendary rapper Tupac Shakur, the man accused of his murder is now claiming that Sean Diddy Combs once ordered a hit on the rap icon.
Diddy and Suge Knight finally charged hits like a shockwave, dragging a buried truth into the open after decades of silence. Nearly 30 years later, new evidence is ripping apart the story everyone thought they understood.
Snoop believed Suge had something with Tupac's death.
It was a dark alley, and he was the leader. He led us.
The details emerging now suggest a level of planning and control that changes everything about Tupac's death.
The man charged in Tupac Shakur's murder is speaking out from behind bars for the first time. Dwayne Keefe D Davis insists he was 300 miles away when the rapper was shot. Now he's pointing the finger at someone else.
It hits hard when you hear Dwayne Keefe D Davis finally break that silence after nearly 30 years.
I'm innocent. I ain't killed nobody, never did ever kill nobody. They don't have no evidence against me. Came and put me in Las Vegas.
From a jail cell, he says he is innocent, says the police picked the wrong man, but that doesn't calm anything down. It makes it worse. Because a case this big does not stay unsolved for decades unless something is being buried. And now, with old files coming back and hidden details surfacing, it starts to feel like the truth was never missing. It was covered, protected, and left to rot in silence.
We ain't meant to survive 'cause it's a setup.
The death of rap legend Tupac Shakur nearly 30 years ago became one of the nation's most notorious unsolved murders.
Hey, Keith, Metro Police, come over here.
Then in 2023, a breakthrough when prosecutors charged this man with ordering the hit, the only person arrested for Shakur's murder, who now tells ABC News authorities have the wrong man.
When he got arrested in 2023, it didn't feel like justice catching up. It felt like something cracking open that was never supposed to be touched. Suddenly, old confessions were no longer stories. They were evidence. Conversations that people laughed off started lining up in a way that felt too real. And every time investigators followed the trail, it kept dragging them back to one name, Sean Diddy Combs. Not once, not twice, but over and over again. That is when everything changed. This stopped looking like chaos and started looking like control.
Now, according to the Davis, the beef stemmed from the continuous taunting of Combs by the iconic rapper. Now, this is a proffer done with former LAPD detective Greg Kading, and in that, Davis made a similar claim about Diddy's disdain for Tupac and Suge.
Then comes the part that feels cold and calculated. The claim that a $1 million bounty was placed on Tupac. That is not rage. That is planning. That is someone deciding a life had a price. And when you look at the personal connections, it gets even darker. Tupac had ties to Sarah Chapman first, and years later, Diddy calls her his dream woman. That overlap feels uncomfortable, almost like a silent rivalry turning into something deeper. It raises a brutal thought that is hard to ignore. Maybe it wasn't just about taking Tupac out. Maybe it was about replacing him completely.
Police and Dwayne Keefe D Davis is making headlines yet again, as Davis is claiming that Diddy told him he would give anything for that dude's head, in reference to both Suge Knight and Tupac Shakur.
That becomes even more disturbing when you understand who Tupac Shakur really was. He was not manufactured. He did not need to force attention. People were drawn to him naturally, and that kind of presence cannot be copied. On the other side, you have power built through influence, pressure, and control. That difference creates tension, because when someone becomes everything you are trying to be without even trying, it eats at you. And sometimes that turns into something dangerous. This does not feel like rivalry anymore. It feels like obsession that went too far.
So Keefe D was like, look, I need the money. Puffy and them supposed to give me $1 million. They gave us most of the money or half of the money. And that's how everything unraveled for is what happened in Vegas.
And the most brutal part is what came after. In trying to silence him, whoever was behind it may have made him untouchable. Tupac did not disappear. He became permanent. His voice got louder after death, not quieter. That flips everything upside down, because now it looks like the plan failed in the worst way possible. This was not just about winning. This was about erasing someone who could not be controlled. Then you look at Suge Knight and things get even more uncomfortable. He was the one responsible for Tupac's safety. He was right there that night. So how does someone that important move through Las Vegas with no proper security around him? That detail alone does not sit right. It feels wrong at a basic level. And when something that obvious is missing, it forces you to ask if it was a mistake or something much worse.
I see Keefe D. Keefe D was spooked. First thing he told me was they didn't have nothing to do with the killing of my homie Bunchy. I responded to Keefe D and said, shit, if I thought that, I'd be on you already. He said, but I'm gonna give you something that's real true, and I've been wanting to tell you because we've been knowing each other, since we was kids.
Suge's own words only add fuel to that doubt. He said Tupac was laughing and joking in the hospital after the shooting, but reports say Tupac was unconscious and barely holding on. Those two stories do not match in any way. One of them is not true. And when the person closest to the situation gives a version that clashes with reality, it creates a crack that keeps getting wider. That is why people started looking at his behavior differently. From the start, it was described as strange, not emotional, not urgent, not what you would expect from someone who just watched everything fall apart. There was a calmness there that feels out of place. And that kind of calm in a moment like that does not feel normal. It feels controlled.
And good thing he didn't, because even though we was friends, but if a motherfucker pays you to kill us, I got a bullet into my skull. And one of the best friends I had ever had in life is Pac.
And once you see that, the whole story shifts. Because now it is not just about the shooter. It becomes about the setup. Who allowed it to happen? Who removed protection at the exact moment it mattered most? Who stood close enough to stop it, but didn't? That is where it turns brutal. Because it starts to feel like Tupac was not just attacked from the outside. It starts to feel like the danger was sitting right next to him. And that is what makes this so disturbing. The deeper you go, the less it looks like a random act of violence. It starts to look like a chain of decisions, silence, and betrayal. People who knew more than they ever admitted. People who stayed quiet while everything unfolded. And the scariest part is this: the truth was never gone. It was just waiting for someone to finally stop looking away. This is where things stop being messy and start feeling calculated. Because once investigators began digging deeper, a theory started gaining weight that made people seriously uncomfortable. The idea that Suge Knight might not have just been there that night, but may have known exactly how things would play out. And when you hear the motive, it gets cold fast. Tupac was reportedly planning to leave death row. That means money walking out the door, control slipping, power weakening. And in a world like that, losing control is not just business, it is war. Now think about that for a second. If someone that valuable is about to walk away, what is the quickest way to stop it permanently? You don't argue, you don't negotiate, you remove the problem. And what makes it even darker is the idea that the blame could be pushed somewhere else. Gang retaliation, street beef, something loud enough to distract everyone while the real story stays buried. That is why this theory hits so hard. Because if it is even partly true, then the safest place Tupac thought he had was actually the most dangerous place he could have been.
So I jumped in my Hummer and we drove to Vegas. Suge was at home. He was standing up, but he had like a patch. His hair was wrapped up. And he came and explained to us as far as what had happened. But he was explaining it to us like joyful. He was like, man, them start shooting at us. Tupac trying to jump in the backseat. I'm like, get down. I pull him down and he was saying it like Pac was gonna live, you know what I'm saying? Like.
Then comes the night in Las Vegas, and this is where everything starts lining up in a way that feels way too clean. The Tyson fight, packed crowd, high energy, cameras everywhere. Mike Tyson in the ring, celebrities all over the place, chaos in the air. It looks like just another big night. Then suddenly, inside the MGM Grand, Tupac and his crew run into Orlando Anderson. Things get heated fast. Punches thrown. Cameras catch everything. It looks like a random explosion of tension. Just another moment in a long-running feud.
Well, Keefe D said he told Rat James that, look, it's big money in this. Only thing Puffy want to do is pay $1 million to have both of them killed.
But here is the problem. That moment becomes the perfect cover story, because now if anything happens next, it already has an explanation. It looks like retaliation. It feels justified in the streets. Tupac walks out of that building thinking it is done. Fight over. Message sent. But what if that moment was not the end of anything? What if it was the signal that everything was about to begin?
Because that must have been the spirit that Pac showed him. Like even when he said he was driving to the hospital. So I jumped right on the highway to see him. I had a chance to sit there with him. At that time, me and him really wasn't eye to eye.
Because not long after, that white Cadillac starts moving through the strip, slow, watching, hunting. And here is where it gets chilling. This was not random cruising. They were looking for one car, one target. And somehow, in a city packed with traffic, noise, and lights, they find Tupac's BMW. That does not feel lucky. That feels like timing.
He said it was security that accepted money, participated in it, and it was so-called homies. So he laid it out to me in a way that he's feeling his guts to me, saying it wasn't just him, it wasn't just Puffy. He named names, named people.
Now we get to the intersection. Flamingo and Koval, a normal stoplight, cars lined up, music playing. Tupac leaning out, talking, laughing, completely unaware that the next few seconds are about to change everything. Then the Cadillac pulls up, window slides down, and just like that, everything explodes.
Now, Combs has long denied any involvement with Tupac's murder. He's never been charged.
According to Dwayne Keefe D. Davis, it happened fast. Too fast. Tupac looks over, senses something is wrong, and reportedly starts reaching. Maybe for protection, maybe just reacting. But it does not matter. The shots come instantly. Multiple hits. Chest, arm, leg. No hesitation. No warning. Just pure execution. And that moment right there is what makes this feel so brutal, because it was not chaos. It was precision. Tupac saw it coming for a split second, but there was nowhere to go. No time to react. He was trapped in a car, in traffic, in the open. And by the time anyone realized what was happening, it was already over. Now here is where things get even crazier. Years later, Keefe D starts talking. Not quietly either. He is detailed, calm, almost too comfortable explaining what happened. He admits to having contact with Sean Diddy Combs multiple times, not just casual mentions, real conversations, and not just about Tupac, but about Biggie too. That alone raises alarms.
He was also coming straight because there was a big war behind that. A war that they lost. And I think it was a war that destroyed their neighborhood.
The wild part is he did not even realize he was being recorded during some of these moments. He is speaking freely, saying things that eventually circle right back to him. That is what puts him back on the radar after all those years. Not evidence found, not witnesses coming forward, his own words. That is why people say he did not get caught. He exposed himself. And while all of this is happening, people start going back to old interviews with Diddy, watching closely, listening differently, because now every reaction matters, every pause, every deflection. There is one moment in particular where he is asked directly about the accusations, and instead of shutting it down clearly, he calls it nonsense, laughs it off, moves past it. Now on the surface, that sounds like denial. But when you watch it again, knowing everything else, it feels off, too smooth, too controlled, like someone stepping around a question instead of crushing it completely. And that is where things get uncomfortable again, because sometimes it is not what someone says that matters. It is what they avoid saying. Investigators even started looking at body language in those clips, the way he responds, the way he shifts the conversation. It is subtle, but in a case like this, subtle things start to matter. Because when the pressure builds, people slip, not always in words, but in reactions. And that is what keeps this whole story alive. Because every time you think you understand it, another detail comes out that makes it darker, another connection that makes it feel less random, less accidental, more controlled. At this point, it does not feel like one event anymore. It feels like a chain reaction. Decisions made long before that night, moves being set in place quietly. And when everything finally collided at that intersection, it was not chaos. It was the result of something that had already been building behind the scenes.
It was all bad. It was all bad. He was my friend before Death Row, when I met him at the Poetic Justice rap party. So I get to the party, the DJ put something on. He like, yeah, I got my little cousin Snoop Dogg in the house. We'll come up here and rap. Before he could give me the mic, Tupac grabbed the mic.
And then there's the part of the story that feels almost too eerie to ignore, because Snoop Dogg was supposed to be in that BMW with Tupac that night. Same car, same route, same exact moment. But at the last second, he doesn't get in. He backs out, just like that. And when you hear that, it hits you in a strange way, because that is not a small detail. That is the difference between being there and not being there at all. Now, people will say timing, coincidence, just one of those things. But when you start looking at what was happening between him and Tupac just days before, it doesn't feel that simple anymore. There was tension, real tension. Tupac wasn't feeling Snoop after that interview where he showed love to Biggie and Diddy. That didn't sit right. It created distance, and not the quiet kind. The kind you can feel in the room. The kind that makes people move differently around each other. And here is where it gets uncomfortable. Snoop himself admitted he didn't feel safe around them at one point, said he was on edge, even talked about sleeping with a knife close by just in case something went wrong. Now think about that. You're surrounded by your own people, your own circle, and you still feel like you need protection. That's not normal. That's not just tension. That's fear creeping in where trust is supposed to be.
He take it back. We like rapping at each other, like sort of kind of aggressive. We do like 4 or 5 raps. Everybody in the party like it just made a circle now. Finish rapping, we go outside. I'm like, let me get your number, cuz, I'm gonna holler at you. And fell in love with that. I was like, cuz, this hard. So I suggested to Suge that, man, we need to put cuz with us because he already get down like we get down. He needs a team, you know. We're the best team out here, and we need him because he's going to make our team better.
So when he decides not to get in that car, people start asking questions. Was it just bad timing that saved him? Or did he sense something was off? Did he hear something? Did someone say something? Or did the energy in the room shift just enough for him to step back without fully knowing why? Because sometimes people don't have proof, they just feel it. And that feeling ends up saving them. That's why this part sticks with people. Because if Snoop was meant to be in that car and didn't go, then something changed in the final moments. And when things change like that right before something deadly happens, it makes you wonder if everyone in that circle was really on the same page, or if some people knew more than they let on.
All of our lives in jeopardy like that, you don't care. And that's what happened. Our lives was in jeopardy. I started to see that Death Row wasn't for me. I'm here to make good music. That's what I signed my contract to Death Row Records for, to make good music and perform and put out good albums. I didn't sign a contract to hurt nobody or make people hate me or hate people. I've been there, I've done that. So I'm gonna go this route, you know what I'm saying?
And when you step back and look at everything together, it starts to connect in a way that feels too tight to ignore. You've got Sean Diddy Combs being mentioned over and over as the one who may have set things in motion. You've got Suge Knight sitting right next to Tupac with questions hanging over his actions that night. You've got Dwayne Keefe D. Davis placing himself right in the middle of it, describing how it all went down. And then you've got Snoop, the one who was supposed to be there, but somehow wasn't. At some point, it stops feeling like separate pieces. It starts feeling like a system, like every role was already in place. The planner, the insider, the execution, and the one who stepped away just in time. And that's when the story turns from tragic to something much darker. Because now it doesn't feel like Tupac was just caught in violence. It feels like he was surrounded by it, close to it, sitting inside it without even knowing. And that is the part that hits the hardest. Tupac wasn't just killed, he was boxed in, set up, and silenced by something that moved with precision, something that knew exactly what it was doing.